All right, with all that positive energy, why don't we turn it over to Dr. Ross for his superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, and our community. We certainly appreciate the recognition. I'm so proud of Ms. Pascal and her work, her team, the culture that they were able to build at Piney Woods. It's like that school has been in existence for 50 years because they have traditions that seem to go back years and years, but I'm very proud of that hard work and well earned, well deserved. So we look forward to future recognitions of that community and that school. So thank you so much. Amen. And one of the things that I will always go back as we go over our strategic plan is the origins of that strategic plan, built in the 3 questions of our vision, our mission, and our outcomes. Our vision to love and grow our students, our mission to be focused on academic, social, emotional growth and development, articulated by the umbrella of support. Our strategic plan outcomes, we have 4 major goals under school climate: teacher and administrator quality, student achievement, and our strategies for gifted and talented children. But I want to make sure that as we go through these, sometimes you get a strategic plan and that gets put on a shelf for 5 years. But our goal is to stay focused on that growth and development within this mission statement. So with that, we will keep a scoreboard to continue to show to our community and this board our progress. We have our fall map projections here and our winter map. And as you remember, through state proviso, we are to do 3 of these assessments throughout the year, fall, winter, and spring. And we see if this test of SC Ready was given today, we would see that we have a long way to go to make sure that all of our students are at level. But that means our teachers are working very hard, our principals, our staff, our support. We're all working very hard to make sure that every student is able to make growth and to make gains. And we're pressing the mark. We also look at graduation rate. We look at this every week. And our Director of Secondary Education also looks at this data, working with our principals to ensure that we have a name with every number and that we're working through those stories. You can see right after the winter holiday break that we were down to 83% of our students being on track. But that allowed us, because we have the scoreboard, to put those interventions in place. And now we're back up to 87. So we want to have the scoreboard to show us exactly where we are through the year, fighting to get to our strategic plan goal of 90.28. Another chart that we'll update at our next meeting is our CCR, and then we'll have a major update of that once we issue the career ready test. But at this point, we've seen from November 15th, we are tracking 549 students who are neither college or career ready. So graduation rate is important, but we want those young men and women to cross that stage ready to be contributing members of our society and our economy. And so to do that, they must meet those criteria outlined by the state in terms of CCR, college and career ready. So you will see at our next meeting the gains that we've made in terms of increasing the number of students who are college ready, increasing the number of students who are career ready, increasing the number of students who are college or career ready, and college and career ready, and decreasing the number of students who are neither. So that's our goal. We have established in the annual report some challenges that we have, and with every challenge, there's opportunities. The challenge of the growth of mental health issues. This manifests itself in a variety of ways in that spectrum. Everything from the issues of discipline and bullying to mental health issues. We are addressing this growth, and we've seen in the data, and I've shown this in previous board meetings, how after COVID, those major spikes. And so I appreciate this board for stepping forward with interventions, stepping forward to help us reshape what we're doing in terms of our student services, how we retooled there. We're also looking at a growth in students who are not at grade level proficiency. I always use the example of that fourth grade teacher. When you begin the year believing that the majority of your class is at a third grade level, and they're not at a third grade level. If you're an eighth grade teacher and you have students at a first grade level, how do you move forward with standards that ask you to do eighth grade work? And so as we look at the growth of students who are needing to be accelerated, who are needing to use that, you see the struggles in which our teachers are having to move those red bars to blue bars. That's a challenge. And also, as Madam Chair addressed, the need to come together to look at doing a workshop, to look at our goals and priorities as outlined by this board, to look at the growth of enrollment and the growing needs of facilities. So these are our major challenges, but every challenge presents an opportunity. The research says that discipline without having a social-emotional framework is incomplete. So social-emotional learning will help us to not only address behaviors, but prevent behaviors to help deal with the harm. We always say hurt people hurt people. So if we can deal with the hurt, then we can address those issues that are combating and contributing to the social-emotional issues. Looking at how do we maximize the potential of our honor students, as well as having interventions for those struggling learners. There's research and that cites that students with a mentor have 95% chance of graduating on time. So connecting every child with a trusted adult that allows us to create a robust mentoring program. Once they're vetted and trained to help assist our students in those struggling positions. And then C, as stated, to create this 5-year master facilities plan that provides equity and access for all students across the district. So we're excited about these opportunities, and it gives us an opportunity to put our district to continue to be one of the heads of the state, a leader in the state, and provide that world-class education to our students that we expect in School District 5. And with that, Madam Chair, I'd like to talk about how we finance this with our monthly financial report. I want to ask our CFO, Ms. Madison Paul, to come forward to present our monthly financials and our financial recovery plan. And then I'll have one more slide that I'd like to share before taking questions.
Thank you, Dr. Ross. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Dr. Ross, thank you again for having me here tonight. The first topic I will talk about is our monthly financial reports. So this is for the month through November 2022. On the first page, you will see, okay, here we go. On the first page, we will talk about revenue items first. So again, this is through November 30th, 2022. You can see from the bottom line numbers, our original budget is $212,481,590. To date, through November, we have collected $53,530,973. This is broken out into the following categories: local sources, state sources, and then other. Again, through November, we have not yet collected the majority of our local revenue. Again, that usually hits in the December, January, and February months. But did want to point out a couple of items on the local side. So for our interest on investments, you'll see that number at $454,000 is significantly higher than our budget of $50,000. So that is why we are, again, bringing you a budget amendment later this evening. For the state sources, again, that's a little bit more of a cyclical revenue stream, so we do receive a monthly allocation here. And so, again, this is through November 30th. We also receive our Tier 1 property tax relief. about 90% of that 10 million we actually received in December. So again, this is just through November, but we do see that in December. And then looking at our homestead exemption for Tier 3, that does start coming in monthly starting in November. So we did get that first month payment. Additionally, we have received all of our PEBA credits for our Public Employee Benefit Authority. All of that has been received to date. And then lastly, we have already issued our first quarter reimbursement on our indirect costs and our grants. So you'll see that that's $63,000, and that's just for one quarter. So again, we do that quarterly. We do expect that to exceed budget, and additionally, that is another budget amendment item. If you turn to the next page, that is focusing on our expenses through November 30th. Again, our expenses are roughly our salaries and fringes are roughly 87% of our total budget, and our actual year-to-date is right in line with that. So to date, we have spent 86% of our expenses has gone towards salaries and fringe. So you'll notice at the bottom line, we have spent through November 30th, $71,763,129. So again, this does exceed our revenues at that point, but that's why we have that fund balance that we fall back to until these December, January, February months kick in, and we are above water. But I'll be glad to take any questions that you have.
Do we have any questions? All right, seeing none. Dr. Ross, you had another slide.
Sure, thank you. So I'll just move straight into the financial recovery plan. So just a quick background on this. If y'all will recall, back in September, on September 19th, 2022, the board made a motion for, after the results of the phase 2 procurement audit, for the finance to come back and present a plan for our financial recovery. We did that on November 21st. Y'all asked for an additional update within 60 days just to kind of fine tune some of those items that we talked about on the November 21st meeting. So I wanted to give y'all a brief update. Over the last 60 days, we have reviewed lots of our policies and procedures. One of the items that y'all already know about is, of course, the general fund budget amendment that will be on the agenda later today. And in that amendment, we are asking to include an internal auditor and an additional accountant. Again, this was part of the initial recommendation from that phase 2 report. So again, we hope that with your approval, that we will get that underway after today. Additionally, with this plan, we hope that we, of course, can hire these 2 new employees within the next 60 to 90 days. And then after that, the administration will look into restructuring a little bit of the finance department. Again, one of the items that has come up in the phase 2 report was a separation of duties. So we do think adding these additional members of our staff that we can more effectively separate the task. So that, again, will happen by hopefully the end of this school year. Additionally, in November, I talked about a few different manuals. The first one was our financial services manual. Again, this is similar. We're looking to adopt something similar to what Anderson 5 and what Fort Mill School District have that are both posted to their website. This really just serves as a written guide about their internal controls. It provides procedures for financial accounting and procurement activities. And then it also coincides with the South Carolina Accounting Handbook and the South Carolina Department of Education's funding manual. So a lot of that information will also be intertwined with that manual. So that is something that we are working on adopting as an administration. But the next thing that we wanted to talk about was also the manual for the procurement code. So we have, again, already adopted a new procurement code back in April of 2022. But alongside that, we do need to adopt a new procurement manual. So that has not been updated, and we have been waiting on the results of the full procurement audit. So as y'all know, that audit should be concluded at the end of this month. And then once we get that final phase 3 report, then we would look to actually adopt the true procurement manual. The last thing I did want to just talk to you about briefly is our purchasing card program. So I know this is definitely an area of potential weakness for a lot of school districts. So over the last 60 days, I have looked into what our process looks like, and I did want to give you just a brief update of that. So whenever a new card is issued, the cardholder is always given a document that has all the cardholder's responsibilities and procedures by the procurement office. The the cardholder is then asked to sign off on this, and with the understanding that they read and understand the terms and conditions. This document details the limits of purchasing cards, which our daily limit is $2,500. So any purchases that are actually going on the purchasing card should not exceed $2,500. But additionally, if in the event of an unauthorized purchase, the procurement office provides written communication to the employee regarding this violation. The employee must meet with their supervisor to detail the incident in writing, and the supervisor must detail the disciplinary and corrective actions taken to prevent reoccurrence. The employee and supervisor sign, and the form is forwarded to the corresponding executive staff member, and then to me as the CFO. So this is kind of our process for anything that looks potentially, it does not follow our code. This process so far has been effective, but as always, we can always tighten internal controls, so we'll continue to look into this. And of course, as we have an internal auditor, I'm sure this is an area that he or she would want to get going on pretty quickly. So in my initial review, I do think we have a good process, we have good manuals, we have good procedures and in place already. But I certainly think, as always, you can always tighten up internal controls really in any setting. So did just want to give you an update on that. And, you know, really the administration is just looking to go forward with reviewing all business segments on the finance side over the next few months. We definitely want to adopt those manuals going forward. Certainly want to do some more trainings, annual trainings, semi-annual trainings. You know, it does sometimes those kind of get pushed by the wayside once somebody starts with a district. They have a ton of training, and then it kind of falls in the later years. So we just want to make sure we're constantly updating, constantly refreshing as we do have new procedures, new policies in place, that we're updating everyone that would be involved. So that's something that we'll certainly start rolling out more over the summer months. But again, I would definitely recommend semi-annual trainings as well. But I'll be glad to take any questions.
Ms. Huddle.
Well, first of all, thank you for the overview and what you guys have done with the purchasing card program. I think it's really impressive. I appreciate it. I had a couple of questions about it. One is, with the $2,500 limit, are there any restrictions on purchasing capital items with a purchasing card?
Yes, so we normally do not want capital items to be purchased on a purchasing card, but the problem, you know, our capital threshold is $5,000.
Right.
So that wouldn't happen usually anyway, but some of the issues that we do run into are that depending on the program, the capital threshold is lower. So for example, ESSER, they consider a capital asset $100 and more. So that kind of, you know, some of those items could potentially be purchased on a purchasing card, but we don't want that to happen. So that would be where my staff would actually look through the statement, and that would be where the unauthorized purchase would actually go through, and they would have to contact the employee and the supervisor and all of that. But usually in general, a capital asset to us is $5,000. So it wouldn't actually be able to go on a purchasing card. But again, with some of these lower dollar thresholds with ESSER, and Title I is the same way, I believe their threshold is $200. So it can be a little bit difficult to monitor that. So we have to almost do that on the back end and just double checking.
And my other question was, and I don't know if this process has changed, but I think at one point, principals were issued cards that were in their name, but the common practice was for the principal to give the card to someone else to use. And I'm kind of wondering how that works with the cardholder agreement. Does it still work that way? And if so, is that really appropriate that the principal sign the cardholder agreement, but they don't actually have the card?
Well, we actually have a form for that. So it's like it's almost like a library book, like you check out the card. So the principal, you cannot get that card without the principal authorizing that you to take the card off-site or to purchase online. And additionally, the principal will set a dollar value threshold. So he can say, you know, if it's purchasing books or something like that, he can state on that form that you cannot exceed $1,000 or whatever he or she states. And so that is also a part of our process, that when they do check out, you know, unfortunately, it would be difficult for a principal to purchase every single item at their school. So that is why we have kind of that check-in, check-out process for the P cards.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Satterfield.
make sure I'm pushing the right button here. I only have two, so I got a 50-50 chance. The errors in using procurement cards, do you see a lot of them, and are they typically related to someone who just pulled out the wrong card, mistakenly tried to use the wrong card?
Yes, usually, and we don't see a lot. So again, they all come through my office at some point. So they will go to the employee and the supervisor, and then they go to their corresponding chief. And so I see, again, I've been here since August, but on average, maybe 2 a month, sometimes none. But usually what I do see is exactly what you explained, where the purchaser pulled out the wrong card, or they were ordering something personally and the card was in the system, that's something that we are trying to work on, that you should not ever save the card under an Amazon profile or under something like that. We're trying to keep that training fresh, but that is something that we have run into where if it's Amazon or something that they're ordering, they just have that card saved and it's happened. So we're working on not saving the cards on the internet. So yes, you're right. A lot of times it is an honest mistake, but to us, we write up every single thing. So even if it's a mistake, we still have a written record of it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And I have a question. I think I know the answer to this, and I don't know why I have this number 37 in my head. It's 8, okay. Do you know where I was going with this? Okay. My question was just for the public's knowledge, because you hear about how many people in districts have P cards. My question was going to be, how many P cards do we have in District 5? And I thought it was 37, but I think it may be a little bit more.
Just a little bit more. So, so our practice right now, we do have currently 80 active P card holders. Right now, that includes principals, so we know we have 26, 23 schools, so includes them. It also includes cafeteria managers, so that's actually handled through food service, but so every one of those schools would also have a cafeteria manager. So that right there gets you to 56. And then all of the chiefs have purchasing cards, a few of the directors, and then some of our maintenance staff as well will have purchasing cards in order to fix different things, because it's just not really practical if there's an emergency, they got to pay for it to fix whatever it may be.
And would those P cards kind of relate to what Ms. Huddle's question was relating to the capital? If they bought a capital expense or something like that, that's kind of where you see that happening the most?
Yes, so that's the same process for any P card holder, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Paul? All right, Dr. Ross? Well, we have another one, sorry, Mr. Scully.
Yeah, just real quickly, are those cards by any chance, are they programmed to limit the vendors or the expenses where the purchases can be made? The reason I ask is I have a card from my work and it's for travel. And so if I am not trying to purchase something related to a travel expense, then it won't allow the transaction. Do ours here do that as well, or? No,
we don't have that perimeter currently in place because we do have so many various needs throughout the district. So we don't have, we have dollar value limits, but we don't actually have like type of purchase limits in place. But there are definitely certain rules. So for example, like you could not book a hotel room for yourself. You can book a hotel room for a student if it's a trip or something like that. That is part of our procurement code, but you could not book a hotel room. But that's just part of the procedures. It's not actually something that we have in place with the card. If that makes sense.
Ms. Huddle has a question. I think I know where she's going with this.
I think correct me if I'm wrong, there are certain categories of merchandise that it won't let you use, like liquor. I think isn't that programmed in that it won't let you buy liquor, for example?
I would have to, I would hope so, but I would have to double check on that. That's not really where my mind went, but.
I think the procurement manual says that that's done, but it's a good thing to check. But the last thing I remember, it said there were certain categories, like a merchant category, because I think in the audit, we had somebody try to use a card at a merchant that wasn't categorized, and it was rejected. So that it never actually went through, but that's what I remember.
I believe in the audit, there is there's a list of examples of where purchases were attempted, but they were declined because they weren't in an approved category for the district. I think that that's what you're referring to.
Okay.
And the Alphabet Store is one of them.
Yeah, I can certainly, I'm not aware of that myself, but I can certainly look into it and let y'all know. But thank y'all.
Anyone else? All right. Dr. Ross?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I would like to end the superintendent's report with just a update from the Parent Advisories Cabinet meetings, and I appreciate those members who are able to attend when invited to attend. We started the year out with an activity that's called Stop, Start, Continue. At this meeting, we asked each parent to think about practices that they would like to see stopped in our district, practices that they would like to see started in our district, and then practices that they would like to see continue. And this was a way to give information on, from a parent's perspective, of things that are going well, things that we needed to address, and things that we needed to initiate. And from that, we did a consensus building activity to see, of their individual responses, what was the group's consensus of the stop, start, and continue. And so writing it on the board here on continue, they talked about magnet and choice, and with it being school choice week, I think that was really good to recognize the magnet and choice offers we have in our district. They talked about continuing the safety procedures. They appreciated the changes that we made in terms of having our SROs, our security detail, and even our security officers who you work so hard to be armed. They talked about the vestibules that we're putting into our schools and their appreciation for that. They like the parent education series that we have going on. When it came to stop, we were looking for some consensus on what are some of the things that we like to stop, and the consensus was very grading scales. And so we will, at our next update, we're going to be talking about a calendar for when we do our academic report. We're talking about grading in School District 5 and tackling those issues in terms of the grading policy. And when we talk about START, the consensus, Madam Chair, members of the board, was starting community involvement, helping parents have a path for success for their children. If we look at all of the information that we have, specifically on our websites and our manuals, sometimes it's hard to navigate that. And as a parent, how do I find a path for my child? And so we looked at an objective of creating an app that would be a parent app that they can download on iOS or Android. And this app, in conjunction with our communications rollout of a new website, and we wanted to be all compatible with the existing programs that we use, would automate our processes and procedures, but automate, not only that, automate our information that we have, such as navigating academic, co-curricular, and extracurricular activities, our district course catalog, for example. So envisioning an app where I can put in, if I have 2 children in the district, I can put in preferences for each child, and opportunities will be pushed to me. Instead of me going to find these opportunities, the opportunities would be pushed to me. Camps, classes, summer opportunities, weekend enrichments. And so we would like to make an aid to help our parents navigate the instructional and the academic programs that we have, to be informed of the offerings that we have. As a parent working, we have 2 parents working in our household, and sometimes it's hard to digest everything that's out there. So to be able to have it automated and customized to my child will allow us to make just raising our children and partnering with the district that much easier. So we will begin crafting a solicitation that we would like for review, not tonight, but at another meeting. We just wanted to bring to you an update on what came out of this meeting, the goal of creating, not only as we redo our website, redo our communication structure, but including a tool for parents responding to their stop, start, and continue activity that will allow parents to be that much more engaged with the opportunities we have, so no child misses out on any of the great opportunities we provide in District 5. And so, Madam Chair, that is our D5 story, and we stand for any questions.
All right, do we have any questions for Dr. Ross? Kathy? Ms. Huddle?
On the app, I'm just curious, have we looked at, as opposed to developing our own app, have we looked at tools that maybe work with the resources we already have, or Blackboard, or even an existing app that, I'm just saying, when you develop an app, you have to look not only at the cost of developing it, but the cost of maintaining it. So just wondering if we're looking at other alternatives.
That's a great point. One of the things that we looked at and landed on an app is when you look at now technology development costs, they are shifting down in terms of all of the providers and vendors that we see in the marketplace. But now as you look at rolling out a new website, it comes with other features, and the app is one of those. So we want to roll this out all together as one big package versus separate pieces. And I think one of the, it might be a setting I just have wrong on my phone, but I'm littered with emails, and that's just one child, right? And to have it separated in a nice, neat package, I think it would make it easier for parents. And so we didn't want to have a website and then the social media piece and then an app over here. We want to see how many things work with PowerSchool, which is the ultimate holder of knowledge. How many things that can we collapse into one to make one simple application where all of the things that we're currently using work on that platform. So to answer your question in short, yes, we've looked at vendors, but we're wanting to package this in our solicitation as the website, the social media profile, and the app all together.
Do we have Mr. Satterfield?
Yeah, first of all, I applaud you for that idea. And Mr. Ross, or Dr. Ross, sorry, I hope I don't do that too many times. Dr. Ross and I have had conversations over the years about how to better communicate with parents and help a lot of our parents understand how the whole educational process works. We sort of take it for granted that as long as they can get them on the bus and they go to school, that teachers are going to teach them and they're going to come home and they're going to be smarter, and they get off the bus and they're going to do their homework and be happy kids. But it just doesn't work that way. I was fortunate that I worked in all three clusters. I worked in the Irmo and the Dutch Fork and the Chapin clusters. And there's a vast difference with parents understanding how this whole process works. And if we truly want the children to be successful, we have to help parents understand exactly what's available and how to help them have access to those resources, as Dr. Ross was just saying. But an app is a great idea, but it's also going to take legwork. It's going to take visiting apartment complexes. It's going to take visiting churches. It's going to take a lot of creative ideas in order to help those children, especially those children of poverty. So there is a huge difference in our district. When I was at Chapin High School, my parents, they were looking at class rank, and they were worried about where their children were on class rank. They understood from point A to point Z how everything worked. But I worked in other clusters where parents did not understand how that worked. And that's a real disadvantage for those parents. It really is. So I hope that maybe our board, maybe we can have a workshop on that, or we can brainstorm and use our creative juices and maybe get some input from the folks out there and the public too, in our schools and staff in our schools. We've got to figure out a way how to better reach and help those parents understand how that process works. We can't just take it for granted that every kid comes to school, so they ought to learn, and they should go home, and so they all can go to college, and it just doesn't work that way. And I've seen it over the years. I've experienced it for 33 years. I've seen the differences, and I've seen the shortcomings. And Dr. Ross will know that we did a lot of things that were just alternative ideas to help kids, but there's a lot more that could be done. And so I encourage our district, and I'm glad that we're talking about these academic issues as a board. And I hope that that can be our impetus for the next 4 years, that I'll be on the board anyway, that we can move in that direction. But I applaud you for that, Dr. Ross, and I hope that we'll come up with a lot more ideas and ways that we can help these children. So we really, that should be the reason that we're on the school board. Thank you.
Mr. Scully, do you have a question?
Yeah, Dr. Ross, are you aware, are there any products that currently exist that do what you're wanting to do with the app that we could take advantage of that are already on the market?
There are, and what I wanted to do, Ms. Scully, is just to talk about kind of parameters first, so it's not seem if they respond to a solicitation that they had a leg up on any other vendors. But to answer your question, that's kind of where we got the idea. We saw one that approached us, and they could collapse all of those things into, so without naming the actual vendor, I'll say yes.
That's what I was asking.
Right.
I thought I can't remember the name, so I won't name it either, but I thought there was something similar as you were talking about that.
That's correct, that's correct.
Any other questions? I will say, just as a parent that has children in different grades and that have different programs, and you kind of we kind of touched on that. I mean, when you have Power School and Seesaw and emails, and you have all of these apps with computer programs that help our students, and then you have the website, and then you have you have your curriculum guides. I'm blanking on the word, Miss Miller. What's it called? The catalog, the course catalog. You have all of these different things in different places. It's hard as a parent to bring all of it together. So I hope that there is a way for an app developer that is way smarter than I am, obviously. I don't know if that can even be created, to bring in all of those different programs in one place so that it's actually used, so that we use these programs that we pay for and that they bring a benefit to kids. Just my 2 cents on that. For what it's worth, 2 cents. All right, do we have any other questions? All right, with that, does that conclude your super? All right.
Report, yes, ma'am.